Hello folks, welcome back. I've got the clock finished up with the woodwork, I think, and so now we've got a few other pieces left. While we're getting it back together here, I wanted to just comment on the door latches. These are kind of simple and elegant. There's a little pin that is probably put in after the fact over here, and then this is just this lock mechanism has two parts. It's a flat piece that's actually kind of crudely machined, handmade, and then it's a ball that's been drilled and then just peened on there. And then the escutcheon plate goes on top of that. So that's a nice simple latch, and that catches these pointed screws which sit in the doors, and that's what locks the door in place. So ingenious hardware, I like that a lot. So brass is all polished here. One thing that this clock is missing is there's a pendulum catch that's used for shipping protection for the clock. And I have one of these from another Howard 70. This is what it looks like. It has two screws that go in the case, and then it has threads, and then this little cap. And if you're shipping the clock, you mount the pendulum in here, and then this piece flips over it, and then it locks the pendulum in place so that the suspension spring doesn't come undone and it doesn't get out of beat, which would create a service call for the clock manufacturer. So it's a really great invention that they came up with, and I don't know that anybody else does this in quite this way. Unfortunately, this clock, it's missing. I have what I believe is the original bottom board, and you can see it has holes where this originally mounted. So we're going to use some of our manufacturing ability here, and we'll see if we can recreate this. It's a relatively simple piece in that it's just cut out of a flat piece of brass. The only complexity in it really is the shape, and then the fact that it's kind of half drilled and threaded. So that'll be a little bit of a challenge to make work, but I think we can make that. So anyway, I think the case is ready to go back together. I'm going to hang it up and put the doors on so we can look at it, and we'll see if we can make one of these pendulum hangers. I've drawn up our replacement parts for these guys. So we'll cut those out on the router and see how they come out. Well, the routing is done. I ended up making a few of these because I was trying to improve the surface finish. My router actually is probably capable of a pretty nice surface finish, but I was originally trying to drill the holes and cut the part with the same tool, and that left me with a constraint on how big my cutter can be. But probably the largest challenge was the way I was holding the brass down, which was just using the blue tape and a super glue trick, which is common in CNC router work for wood. But these parts are pretty small to handle the cutting forces. Anyway, I think I'm happy with the results of the last couple of these, and I can get them cleaned up, and we'll continue on to finishing. What's left to finish are chamfering these holes. I've already tapped this to fit the screw that connects our little catch plate on top. The large part is we need to drill and tap this hole here, but there's a little bit of a problem, and that is this is a non-standard thread. This is a 36 tooth per inch thread, and I believe it's a number 8. Standard for a number 8 screw, at least in the modern era, is an 832. So I don't have a tap that can do this thread pattern on house. So while we're waiting on Amazon to bring us the tap that we need, we'll get a look at the movement. Here's the movement. This is, again, E. Howard number 70. It is a weight-driven movement, deadbeat, and it's relatively simple. This movement does not have maintaining power. That is a mechanism that some clocks have. Actually, the biggest competitor to this clock, the Seth Thomas number 2, has maintaining power, which is basically a battery backup, if you will, that runs the clock while you're winding it. So Howard 70s don't have that, but otherwise they're fairly similar movements. There's not really all that much to these. And I don't know who worked on this clock last, but I don't really think it has run since then. If I just move the train back and forth, you can actually see that there's oil in the pivots. So, you know what, guys? Normally I'd want to go nuts and take this all apart, but I think somebody else did enough of that work for us. I don't love the nylon weight cord here, but that's all hidden in the clock's operation. So I'm going to just stick this back in our case. Through the magic of modern logistics, we have our tap. This is our 836 fine thread tap, and this appears to be a match, so I think we're good. If you note the way that this is built, this tapped hole goes into the horizontal hole that connects the two pieces here. And so we're going to do that the same way. That's a place for the chips to go as we tap. Now, one thing about the way that they built this is the hole is off-centered into the bulk of the hole being in the main bracket here and a smaller part in this. I don't know if there was a reason for that or what the deal is. I've been thinking, how do I do this best? And honestly, I think I'm going to build mine a little differently. I'm going to center the hole right on the line between these two pieces, and I'm going to let the threads of our tapped hole capture the pendulum rod. It doesn't need to be a high friction fit. It just needs to keep it from being able to move up and down or slide. And even if it's sitting gently in the hole, that's going to be fine, and it's not going to go anywhere because the pendulum is going to be attached at the top of the clock, so the pendulum won't be able to unthread. The only thing I need to be careful of is the depth of the hole. I don't want to come out the bottom of the plate here. So I'm going to use the Bridgeport, the big building machine, to do this because I've got some features there that'll help us make sure the hole goes where we want it. I've got our parts in the Bridgeport vise. I have one parallel in the vise underneath both of these pieces. That'll hold this at a consistent height. And I have zeroed my readout with the bit touching, and so I'm going to be watching that to drill down the 0.45 or so inches that we need to make this happen. This is brass, should drill pretty easily. By the way, one of the major reasons I want to use the Bridgeport for this is this has a neutral mode. Right now I've got the spindle disconnected from the drivetrain, and that means that when we go to tap, I can use the Bridgeport to hold the tap perpendicular with the hole and just turn it with my hand. So that should make sure that we get our tap on the line of the hole that we need and hopefully not break it. Taps come in several different styles, and they relate to the kind of hole that you need. We are going to start with this tap on the bottom here, which has the longest taper in it, to get the beginnings of the threads established, and then we're going to work our way through to these other taps. This last one being a bottoming tap that's going to allow us to get our threads as close to the bottom of the hole as we can. And I've got the Bridgeport in neutral again, so I'm going to be turning this just by hand. And our final step is a little chamfer to finish off these holes.